would like to talk with you about one of President 47's cabinet selections, the Secretary of Defense, the Honorable Pete Hegseth. The current Secretary of Defense is not even qualified to join the military if he were to walk into a recruiting office today wanting to join. Let me explain. During my 24-year career in the U.S. Navy, I transferred to shore duty twice, 6 ships, 2 shore doors, both of which were recruiting tours of duty. My first time was in Navy Recruiting District, New York, and the second time was in Navy Recruiting District, North Carolina. Coming into a Navy recruiting office is like a job interview for the U.S. government. One of the many areas we look at as we screen people who want to join our organization, the U.S. Navy, is to ensure they're of high moral character to join the Navy. One area that's usually in full display is a person's tattoos. I have tattoos. Tattoos have many meanings. The tattoo in question that our Honorable Secretary of Defense has the perception of being associated with white extremist groups. Here is the comparison picture for you to decide if these markings on his body are similar to white extremist groups. The key word is perception. In the military, all that is required is the perception that something doesn't align with the high moral standards and military code of conduct required of the men and women in uniform daily to instigate an investigation. When our Honorable Secretary of Defense was a captain in the U.S. Army National Guard, questions arose about the tattoo on his arm. Let me read you the message that stated these concerns the leadership of the National Guard had on those tattoos. This is the message. And I'm not going to say the names on this message, but it is from one person, of course, going to carbon copied to multiple people on here. So if you're in the military and you get a message like this sent on you, it is not good when it's carbon copied to this many people. And the subject is Major Hegseth, and the importance is high. This is posted on the internet. It's posted right there on the internet for all to read. Good evening, sir. As a member of the District of Columbia National Guard ATFP team, it's my duty to provide you information regarding our service members. I received the attached information today from a former DC Guard member regarding Major Hegseth of the MAC, and this information is quite disturbing. Sir, Major Hegseth has a tattoo of Deuce Volt on his inner arm, bicep area. The phrase Deuce Volt is associated with the supremacist groups in which white supremacists' use of Deuce Volt and a return to medieval Catholicism is to invoke the myth of a white Christian, i.e. Catholic, medieval past that wishes to ignore the actual demographics and theological state of Catholicism today, let alone the doctrinal practices of contemporary Catholicism. Disseminated in the form of hashtags and internet memes, Deuce Volt has enjoyed popularity with members of the alt-right because of its perceived representation of the clash of civilizations between the Christian West and the Islamic world. Crusader memes, such as an image of a Knight Templar accompanied by the caption, "I'll see your jihad and raise you one crusade," are popular on far-right internet pages. The motto is also used by nationalist groups in Europe and was portrayed on large banners during marches celebrating the Polish National Independence Day in 2017. According to AR 67-1, parentheses 3, tag 3, parentheses, close parentheses, states, the following types of tattoos or brands are prejudicial to good order and discipline and are therefore prohibited anywhere on a soldier's body. Extremist tattoos or brands are those affiliated with depicting or symbolizing extremist philosophies, organizations, or activities. Extremist philosophies, organizations, and activities are those which advocate racial, gender, or ethnic hatred or intolerance, advocate, create, or engage in illegal discrimination based on race, color, gender, ethnicity, religion, or national origin, or advocate violence or other unlawful means of depriving individual rights under the U.S. Constitution, DEI sounds like something similar, and federal or state law. Sir, with the information provided, this falls along the line of insider threat, and this is what we as members of the U.S. Army District of Columbia National Guard and the Anti-Terrorism Force Protection Team strive to prevent. Thank you for your time and attention to this matter, sir. So they're looking at our Honorable Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, as a threat. And if you look in one of my previous videos, the FBI has stated that the number one threat to the U.S. is white extremism, and they say he has an extremist tattooed right on his forearm. Let me give you a little bit of history, U.S. military history, U.S. history, for those of you who like DEI or don't like DEI. Racism in the U.S. military was officially outlawed by President Truman's Executive Order 9981 in 1948, 1948. The order banned segregation and called for the abolition of discrimination based on race, color, religion, or national origin in the military. Are there racists in the military? Yes, there are. You bet there are. I've met them. They enlist and serve secretly. This is what makes the racist who serves in the military a below average, underhanded, low-life, hypocrite citizen who leads a double life because they're leading a fake existence in the military amongst servicemen who are not supposed to see color. This kind of person is not fit for military service. You can be a below average racist civilian all day. It's your God-given right. Racism is reserved for below average U.S. citizens. However, racism will not be tolerated in the military. As the message stated, the National Guard leadership had concerns about the perception of the Honorable Secretary of Defense's tattoos to the point he was barred from serving on duty at the inauguration of former President Joe Biden, because they had concerns that he was a white extremist. And white extremism is the number one FBI threat. After being barred from serving this duty, Hegseth, who doesn't deserve the title of honorable anymore, resigned from the National Guard. It was his best course of action, as he would have faced criticism and an investigation into why he used such poor judgment in acquiring such a visible tattoo with racist connotations on his body. In my opinion, he would have been punished and stripped of his commission. He knew that. That's why he ran, before he was prosecuted. I guarantee it. He was in 04 at the time. He was equivalent to a lieutenant commander in the U.S. Navy. He's looked upon as a senior officer who commands dozens of servicemen. As he was a senior officer, I would have questioned his judgment in choosing and acquiring those controversial tattoos. In recruiting, we have a PowerPoint slide from the FBI that lists tattoos unacceptable for military service. If he had gotten by the recruiter with those tattoos and processed at the mess processing station, his tattoos would have been flagged. I guarantee it. I've seen people with area codes tattooed on their bodies unable to join. By no means is Hegseth a stupid person. People don't get to that rank in the military if they're stupid. Plus the ribbons he's earned, I know he isn't a stupid person. In my opinion, he knew those tattoos he acquired were controversial. In my opinion, he wanted to push the system to his limits to see what he could get away with by flaunting his white nationalist ideology. Because of the high moral code of conduct the leaders of the National Guard displayed and have for the military, they knew such a tattoo on someone's body displayed for all to see is prejudicial to good order and discipline, and is therefore prohibited anywhere on a soldier's body. He may have gotten away with the tattoo 100 years ago when racism was rampant in the military, not in today's military. For those of you who don't know, racism is a cancer in a cohesive team such as the military. If you can't trust the person next to you in stressful situations as conflicts In conflicts and battle situations, your focus is not on the battle, but on this person you perceive to be a racist. Will he help me? Will he save me? Will he leave me behind? You can't have this ideology in the military. Bravo Zulu to the National Guard leadership for recognizing these racist tattoos and immediately acting on it. This is who President Trump chose to be his Secretary of Defense, a person who resigned his senior officer position in the National Guard rather than face the full might of a forthcoming military investigation and possible stripping of his commission because of his bad judgment. We can see his bad judgment on display as the Honorable Secretary of Defense. I want you to listen to what the Honorable Secretary of Defense said about diversity in the Navy. Listen to this.
Perspective. Why do you get rid of something like DEI? Because from our perspective, it's served a purpose of dividing the force as opposed to uniting the force. And this is something I've said quite publicly, and what I want to be is transparent with this building and everyone who serves here. Say the same thing in public that we say in private, which I hope you'll find from us. I think the single dumbest phrase in military history is our diversity is our strength.
The Honorable Secretary of Defense said diversity was stupid and the military should focus on lethality. First, let me explain to the Honorable Secretary of Defense. It doesn't matter what color or culture the person is when they pull the trigger or push the button to unleash hell on an adversary in the U.S. military. The military will always be lethal regardless. That's what they train to do every day. Let me also explain how wrong the Honorable Secretary of Defense is on diversity and why he's the worst possible choice for the Secretary of Defense position. We celebrate our diversity in the military to share, get to know one another, and have a deeper understanding of the history of the many different cultures that make up the U.S. military. This brings us servicemen closer together, not only as a team, but as a family. Because we spend months at a time together, counting on one another every day we serve together, forward deployed. Snipes Castle is my other channel. My motto is shipmates for life, and we are for life once we serve together. I can also see that the Honorable Defense Secretary didn't learn anything while in basic training. In basic training, servicemen are taught that you're all the same. Such a basic lesson a racist couldn't understand. In my opinion, the Honorable Secretary of Defense was always one of those people whom I talked about, who enlisted in the military and hid his white nationalist ideology. These types of people I specifically labeled as below average, underhanded, low-life hypocrite U.S. citizens who lead a double life because they're portraying a fake existence in the military among servicemen who are not supposed to see color. This is where the Honorable Secretary of Defense is a failure and a fraud. Just like the poor judgment in getting that tattoo, the Honorable Secretary of Defense has already displayed poor judgment by leaking sensitive information about military operations in a Signal group chat. Active duty military personnel who were accused of leaking sensitive information would have been crucified. They would most definitely have their secret clearance removed up to their career coming to an end, possibly through non-judicial punishment. No one would expect this kind of bad judgment from a former senior officer in the National Guard. In closing, I want to leave you with a true sea story I was involved in during a training session used in the U.S. Navy Chief Petty Officer initiation, induction, or transition as first class petty officers transition into this new leadership role as the chief in the U.S. Navy. There was a master chief, a senior chief, and myself in the master chief's office when a chief selectee brought us his egg division project for review. Each chief selectee is tasked to create their own 12 egg division with different ranks to simulate the division in the Navy. This one chief selectee's egg division had white eggs, black eggs, brown eggs, and yellow eggs, simulating the diversity in his division. The senior chief picked up one of the black eggs and stated, is this how me and Senior Chief Starks look? The senior chief and I laughed. The Master Chief then chimed in and went into training mode. The Master Chief said, although the senior chiefs find your egg division funny, I don't. From this point on, you don't see color in the Navy. We don't see color in the Navy. Every sailor in the Navy is navy blue. We bleed navy blue. Get that division out of my face and correct it. The Master Chief, the Senior Chief, and I got into this Chief Selectee really good until he got the message implanted in his brains. We don't see color in the military. We don't see color in the Navy. In the Navy, you navy blue. We bleed navy blue. There is no distinction. If you listen to my videos, rarely do I mention an individual's color. That Master Chief was white who said that. We don't see color in the Navy. That's reserved for your average civilians to waste their time with. Civilians, meaning you out there who's watching. If I were president, I would remove Mr. Hegseth because in no way does he deserve the title of honorable or represent the core values of military service. No one can take away the service he performed for his country while active duty National Guard. That I praise him for. I salute him for that. But his bad judgment, which is currently tattooed on his arm for the world to see as a former senior officer in the National Guard, says all we need to know on who he is as a person. His values were not in line with the high moral standards required in the military as outlined by the National Guard leadership. That's why he resigned. I would replace him with one of the fine officers I served with. Someone the servicemen will respect as a former serviceman who upholds the same high moral standards of honor, courage, and commitment, the Navy core values. In closing, in the end, the person in the National Guard was going to possibly discipline and possibly strip him of his commission is now in charge of the Department of Defense. Tell me what you think of my opinion of the current Secretary of Defense. Please comment below. All are welcome. I close with the final line of the Sailor's Creed. I am committed to excellence and the fair treatment of all. Diversity is not stupid, Hegseth. Diversity is stupid because you're what your tattoos on your arm and chest imply. You know what I'm talking about. The National Guard laid it out in the message I have right here. And as for the person who hides you, number 47. Number 47 demonstrates to all of us that you are the reflection of the company you keep. I want to leave you again with the final line of the Sailor's Creed. I am committed to excellence and the fair treatment of all. Senior Chief out.